What happens when I put evols in Snake Eyes with generators? You create this interesting tournament. Make sure you guys smash the button, crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more Oz content. The 17th Iburi Championship has come and gone, and this is actually an incredibly diverse breakdown, considering how much of the OCG is in the fire meta purgatory, because it showcases all of the well-rounded ideas that the meta actually has going for it, along with, you know, some of the diversity that kind of comes with the meta. So Snake Eyes is on the top of your meta chart here. Now this is actually pure Snake Eyes. Do keep in mind, I mean, most of the Fire King builds do end up splashing in the Snake Eyes package, but this is basically, you know, Flamberge Dragon, Link, Climb, do all the setup, the Dia Bellstar stuff. A lot of the stuff that you're used to seeing with that build is incredibly strong. And then, of course, Nemleria Horus, that's something that the OCG has loved to do for quite some time. The fact that, you know, this engine is able just to work together and set up these really troublesome monsters, I think is genuinely impressive. And then we have, of course, Purely still sitting at the dinner table. That doesn't really tend to change all that much. Salamangreat and Fire King, and actually Infernoids. You have three very, very strong fire deck, actually 4 strong fire decks sitting at the dinner table here. And then, of course, we have a Labyrinth duelist. It's actually kind of interesting to see how Labyrinth has been forced to find ways to evolve in the OCG in order to kind of keep up with how things are going. And then we have this Nemleria Snake Eyes generator pile of cards. And when you see this list, you're going to take a look at this and you're going to go, wow, this is really interesting just for the ideas that they're kind of circling through here in order to kind of keep up with things. So let's pass on over to those deck lists. Winning our event here is none other than the Snake Eyes, probably most basic list that you could ever actually hope to see here in the whole wide world, because this build is taking advantage of everything that you want. We're also playing the diversion spell card in here to crystallize a monster as well, which is actually kind of cool to see that that is getting some value out here. And then, of course, you do play the one cross out to kind of make sure that, you know, you don't want to lose to these really stupid things along the way, all right? There are so many stupid little things that can ruin your day while playing this deck. You're trying to not get hit by those. You're also playing one copy of the spell, or the trap card in here for the Dia Bellstar as well, so you can technically get a free board wipe on the opponent if need be. But looking at the rest of this, I like this list a lot. It basically takes advantage of how this deck wants to set up and put that pressure on your opponent. So good stuff. Second place was actually Purely. I'm actually not surprised. Now, like the previous video that we saw, this build is forced to play the mask. You need to be able to stop certain threats, and the only way that this deck can actually do that right now is by relying on the mask to make sure that, you know, you don't get blown out along the way. I know that that's not what you want to be seeing right now as a Purely player. You want to just go, hey, you know, we're still able to play the game, you know, nothing really changes. No, a lot of things have come down on this deck, and it has a lot of issues that it's got to deal with here for future takeaways. So, all things considered, I'm just happy to know that Purely is still able to kind of compete up with the meta, but the Year of the Fire has just come down on this deck so hard that it's had such a terrible time. Third place is our Nemleria Horus deck. Now, you've ever wondered, you know, how can we get all of this stupid advantage, you know, going? Well, the deck is able to abuse the Nemleria tree along with the Nemleria monsters to start setting up and hitting level 12s. This deck is hitting level 12s better than Centurion is hitting level 12s, and that's actually kind of crazy to me because all of your Horus monsters are just free for this deck, all right? Like, you start this giant roll of advantage here, and you start going down these lines, and you force your opponent to go into these really bad positions. And I do think that you do need to keep in mind with this deck that the steamroll advantage is what's going to help this deck out. Also, the Crimson Dragon to search for the Synchro Rumble is stupid in this deck, because that basically just turns everything into 2 synchros, and now you're putting more pressure on your opponent that you normally shouldn't be having. Next up is our Salamangreat deck here. Now, this is great. You get to see triple Kaiser Coliseum down there. If you want to point a finger as to why this deck is able to do so well, I put a lot of it on the Kaiser Coliseum. Kaiser Coliseum ensures that this deck is able to lock your... You put 1 monster on the field, congratulations. Now your opponent has to, out it. And then on your next turn, you're like, oh, okay, we'll go ahead and we can start to split on apart here and, start to do these additional lines of play. Now your opponent's going to find themselves, well, not so happy about the situation. So it's interesting, to say the least. I like what we're doing with this idea. I really wish we could play Kaiser Coliseum too. It'd be great, but we don't have that ability. All right, it's unfortunate, but with how the TCG is, Kaiser Coliseum just causes too many ruling issues. I wouldn't be surprised to see it get removed to the next list in the OCG. All right, we have Fire King Snake Eyes out here. This is what I was talking about. You see that, you typically pack in your Snake Eyes package with this deck, and then you start, Flamberge Dragon just allows the deck free link climbing while you use your Garunics and things to control most aspects of what your opponent is going to do. It's pretty straightforward and to the point. You also are seeing the subdivision Snake Eyes, or subdivision down there, whatever it's called in the side deck. That way you can crystallize any sort of threats along the way. And the deck is just able... So much advantage. Like, in its purest form, which is, or in this form, it's actually crazy to me how stupid good this deck actually is. And people are genuinely shocked. They're like, oh my gosh, the Snake Eyes pet. Yeah, it helps the deck consistently. Alright, Poppius is such a stupid good card. I'm actually surprised they added that to the pool. Next up is 60 Cardnoids. Oh, baby. You do see our favorite double grass look screener, and I'm not gonna lie, I really wish that we could have some fun with grass, at least a little bit of excitement, you know what I mean? Just the ability to kind of mess around with some of these ratios would be kind of nice. I will say that also, Fire Recovery gaining a lot more play out here as well. Fire Recovery, you've seen it in a lot of these fire decks. A lot of builds don't really try to dedicate to it, but it does help out a little bit, at least in terms of, recovery. Oh, pun. But it does do the thing. Outside of that, the Phantasmazer standard you have, most of this, I think, is fine. Alright, I also love the transaction rollback that this deck should not have access to. Next up is our powerful Labyrinth list. We are sporting off one of the field spell in here. Actually happy to see that. You didn't really see a lot of the field spell sticking around. Most of the builds were starting to decide it, but okay, you do see Triple Pot of Extravagance. The deck does want its additional cards. You do need to find ways to get those cards, or you're out of luck. Alright, that's the worst thing about being a Labyrinth player right now, is once that advantage gets swapped away from you, it just kind of starts to go downhill from there. Also, only 2 welcome Labyrinth triple, big welcome. You see the transaction rollback, you see the double mask in here as well to help this deck out maintain its, advantage tree so that it can keep up with the meta. Outside of that, I like what I'm seeing. Once again, I would consider this the more standard meta. The Destructive Drew mechanic coming in as a 1-of also helps this deck out immensely. So, good stuff. And of course, we have our Nemleria Snake Eyes good stuff pile. Now, this is going to be sporting off the, yes, you are playing an Evil Eye package in here, but you have an Evil Tile monster that allows this deck to start setting up multiple negates. You also have Evil Singularity in here as well. This build actually does leave a little bit to be desired. I feel like they're on an incredibly crazy theory here. The generator stuff with the Nemleria, I don't know, all engines come together to create a actually pretty crazy turn of events. So, What do you guys think about this breakdown? Please leave a comment down below, tell me what you guys think, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here later in the day, guys. Peace out. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.